The story begins with a man named Daniel, who had built his entire life on the belief that the harder you work, the more you will achieve. From his early days in school, he was praised for his effort, for staying up late to complete assignments, for being the one who never gave up until everything was perfect. This belief became the foundation of his adult life. He carried it into his career, convinced that success belonged to those who worked the longest hours, who sacrificed sleep, who pushed themselves past their limits, no matter the cost. Daniel worked in a large company, and to his colleagues he was the model of dedication. He arrived before the sun rose and left long after the city lights filled the streets. His desk was always stacked with files, his calendar was always full, and his phone never stopped buzzing. He prided himself on being indispensable, the one who always said yes to extra work, the one who always delivered no matter how unrealistic the deadline. At first, it seemed like this approach was paying off. He received praise, small promotions, bonuses, and the admiration of his peers. People called him a machine, someone who never stopped moving, and he wore that label like a badge of honor. But beneath the surface, a quiet erosion was taking place. The cost of this relentless drive was invisible at first. It showed up in small moments, like missing a friend's birthday because he was working late, or forgetting to call his parents because he was consumed by a project. He told himself these were small sacrifices, the necessary price of ambition. He convinced himself that he could always make it up later, that there would be time in the future to enjoy life once he had made it. But the truth was, the future kept moving further away as the demands of his work grew heavier. One evening, after a 14-hour day, Daniel left the office and walked through the empty streets toward his apartment. He noticed a street musician playing a violin, surrounded by a small crowd of people who were clapping and smiling. He paused for a moment, feeling a strange tug in his chest. These strangers seemed so alive, caught in a moment of simple joy, while he felt like a ghost moving through life. But instead of staying, he turned away and told himself he didn't have time. There was always another email to send, another task to complete, another mountain to climb. Days turned into months, and months into years. Daniel's body began to show the signs of wear. His back ached from sitting too long, his eyes burned from staring at screens, and he relied on coffee to keep himself awake. His doctor warned him about stress, about the risks of neglecting his health, but Daniel brushed it off. He thought to himself, I can't slow down now. If I stop, everything I've worked for will collapse. He was trapped in a cycle of his own making, unable to see that the very effort he believed would bring him freedom was the same effort chaining him to a life of exhaustion. Then came the turning point. One morning, Daniel collapsed at his desk. His co-workers rushed to his side, and he woke up in a hospital bed with wires attached to his chest. The doctor told him he had experienced severe exhaustion and stress-induced complications. Your body is warning you, the doctor said. If you don't change your lifestyle, it will force you to stop in ways you won't like. Lying there in the sterile room, Daniel felt something he hadn't felt in years: fear. Not fear of failure at work, not fear of missing deadlines, but fear of losing his life. For the first time, he asked himself a question he had always avoided. What was all this for? Was the money, the promotions, the fleeting praise worth sacrificing his health, his relationships, his joy? He realized that while he had been chasing success, life itself had been slipping through his fingers. It was in that moment that Daniel remembered something his father used to tell him. Son, the point of working hard is not just to earn a living, but to create a life worth living. He had forgotten that wisdom. He had mistaken working endlessly for working effectively. He had confused motion with progress. And he had learned the hard way that overworking is not a sign of strength. It is a sign of imbalance. When Daniel returned to work, everything looked the same. But he was not the same. He began to study the difference between working hard and working smart. He realized that success is not about the hours you put in, but about the value you create in those hours. He noticed that some of the most respected leaders in his company were not the ones burning themselves out, but the ones who knew how to prioritize, how to delegate, how to step back and see the bigger picture. He began to change small things at first. He stopped saying yes to everything. He started focusing on the tasks that mattered most instead of drowning in busy work. He began taking breaks, walking outside, eating real meals instead of skipping lunch. At first, people were surprised. Some even doubted him. But over time, they noticed something. Daniel was not only healthier and happier, but he was more effective. His ideas were sharper, his projects more impactful, his leadership stronger. This change didn't happen overnight. There were moments of doubt, moments when he felt the old urge to overwork. But each time he reminded himself of that hospital bed, of the realization that life is too short to waste on endless grind without meaning. He discovered that working smart is not about doing less. It's about doing what truly matters in a way that sustains you instead of destroys you. The story of Daniel is not unique. Many people in our world today are caught in the same trap. We live in a culture that glorifies hustle, that praises those who sacrifice everything in the name of productivity. We are told that sleep is for the weak, that rest is laziness, that our worth is measured by how much we can endure. But the hidden cost of overworking is immense. It steals our health, our peace of mind, our time with loved ones, our very joy of living. And by the time we realize it, we often look back and wonder where our lives went. The truth is, success is not about how many hours you work, but how wisely you use your energy. Working smart means focusing on the essentials, aligning your work with your purpose, and knowing when to rest. It means realizing that your brain and body are not machines, and that rest is not the opposite of work. It is the fuel that makes work possible. Think about it. A dull blade cannot cut, no matter how hard you press. But a sharpened blade cuts with ease. Overworking is like pressing harder with a dull blade, exhausting yourself without achieving much. Working smart is like sharpening the blade first, then cutting with precision. Daniel's transformation was not just about efficiency. It was about reclaiming his life. He began to spend time with friends again. He visited his parents more often. He discovered hobbies he had long abandoned, like painting and playing guitar. He found joy in the little things, in sunsets and conversations and laughter. And he realized that this balance did not make him less successful. It made him more. Because true success is not measured only by wealth or titles, but by the quality of your life, the strength of your relationships, the peace in your heart. There will always be work to do, always another task, another project, another challenge. But life does not wait. The people you love will not always be there. Your health will not always remain intact if you neglect it. The moments you postpone for someday may never return. That is the hidden cost of overworking, the silent theft of your present in the name of a future that may never come. So let Daniel's story remind you to pause, to reflect, to ask yourself, am I working hard or am I working smart? Am I moving toward a life I truly want, or am I just running on a treadmill that takes me nowhere? Because in the end, nobody remembers how many hours you stayed at the office. They remember how you lived, how you loved, how you made them feel. The balance between work and life is not a weakness. It is wisdom. It is knowing that success without health is failure. It is knowing that wealth without relationships is poverty. It is knowing that productivity without purpose is emptiness. Work will always demand more of you. The question is, what are you willing to give, and what are you willing to protect? Protect your health, your family, your passions, your peace of mind. These are the treasures that no paycheck can replace. So do not let overworking rob you of the life you deserve. Work smart, choose wisely, live fully.